Hello everybody, welcome back. So let's have a look at XRP, and obviously we all know that XRP is going to the moon, but what we didn't realise is that the moon was actually down here. So yeah, that's pretty impressive stuff. Look, at the end of the day, like I've always liked trading XRP. It's one of my personal favourites, to be honest with you, for trading purposes. I'm not saying it's the best thing in the world, and to be honest with you, I'm pretty sure you know that. But let's have a look at it for what it's worth. I'll try and spin it in some kind of positive light, which is what we need. Despite the mega wick, we are what appears to be in this descending channel formation, right? And while descending, basically goes to lower and lower prices, right? So that's what we have to kind of expect. However, if we think about where we are more or less trying to tag as of today, it is the bottom area of this descending channel, right? So support after support after, well, let's hope that support doesn't break here, but each of these supports carries on breaking, and XRP continues to underperform, as it's famous for, right? It's absolutely famous for it, and I think in many ways this is why we kind of like it, because when it does give a signal, the signals are usually pretty epic, but at the moment we don't really have a particular signal. We do have this formation, and these formations do often break to the up, and my expectation is that the market will break to the up. And actually it on top of that, and again, I'm not being a moon boy, you'll have to watch the video I made this morning, but on top of all of that, my expectation is that actually altcoins are well, not probably, but yeah, I probably would say it would look likely, a likely scenario that they will actually outperform Bitcoin if we don't continue to dump significantly. So provided we don't enter a bear market, at the moment we don't look as though we're going to enter a bear market. There's a few precursors that we went through on the live stream last night for a bear market, the same as we looked at back in May. I said, look, these are the reasons why I don't think there's a bear market. We'll only see a bear market if X, Y, and Z happen. None of that looks remotely possible at this price, with this kind of price action as well. This is all driven from traditional markets and a variety of different things within traditional markets that have led to a sell-off in crypto, just like it did in March 2020. So anyway, I've talked about it long enough anyway, and so obviously if Bitcoin pulls back as a result of traditional markets pulling back, as a result of a number of different things, then XRP is going to pull back, because it's basically just like any altcoin, vulnerable to the market. It's exposed to the market. It basically does whatever Bitcoin does, and usually emphasizes that, and we can see that to a large extent. This is probably one of the biggest pullbacks across the board. This was a very, very big pullback, 34% wick from the top of that daily candle down to the bottom of the wick. But the important thing to recognize is that actually when we were looking at this on the live stream last night, this was one of the biggest wick bounces back that we saw across the market as well. So that in itself is relatively telling of the amount of buying pressure that sits down at these lower levels, and so wicks tell a story. I always say that it's something I always say when we look at all these coins on the Patreon streams. I say, look, wicks tell stories. If we get big wicks at the top, it's saying that can't and doesn't want to support that price. It's not ready for that price at the moment. It can't take it. So the bigger the wick at the top, same as the bigger wick at the bottom. In this case, it's saying that it doesn't warrant this low price. This low price is unreasonable for XRP, and it wants to come back up, and that's why we saw the 40% bounce that we saw, which is a really, really good bounce. Like I say, one of the best bounces on the market. So at the moment, what we're seeing is a rejection from this first area of what used to be, well, I shouldn't say used to be, we planned it to be a support, and it's actually just gone straight through, turned to resistance. So that's not good, but we're still in the descending channel, and these often break to the up. So we should expect this channel to be what's getting played for the moment. So maybe come down to test it, come up, maybe break down from there a little bit further, maybe find a support on that major support, breaking down, and then maybe holding a bottom around there, and then finally breaking out and go into not just the moon, not just Mars, but actually traveling all the way through the Milky Way, finding a planet very much like our own, setting up base there and becoming a global currency, and basically living its best life. That might be a bit of an over-exaggeration, but you see where I'm going from. Basically a breakout, basically. Let's forget about the solar systems and stuff. So yeah, it's not bullish in the short term, let's face it. And like I said on my video this morning, all of the price action on crypto really does depend on what traditional markets decide to do over the next week. Now, as last week I was talking about a potential dump which I've been milking actually, since yesterday, since it happened. So I kind of did speculate that there would be a situation like what occurred yesterday, and lo and behold, it happened. It wasn't. I wasn't saying that it was definitely going to happen. I was saying we should be careful and expect something, or not be surprised if it did happen. And so it's happened, right? And the silver lining of that is that really, it's happened because of traditional markets, there's a number of reasons, but one of the main number one reason is the Megatron virus. That I've coined it the Megatron virus for YouTube algorithm purposes, but that's one of the main things. And so we've got to look at overall developments within Megatron, and it would appear that the Megatron, from what I can understand and what we've seen so far, although being more contagious, doesn't appear to be anywhere near as harmful. It's still early days, and actually, if that ends up being the case, because we have to live with Megatron, it would appear that it could end up being a blessing in disguise, right? By default, it would infect and vaccinate the unvaccinated. Basically, it could end up giving a reasonable degree of herd immunity. And actually, if that is the case, and if economies like the UK, maybe the US goes down the same route as basically saying, well, we just got to deal with it. It is what it is. Let's protect the vulnerable. Let's just do whatever. It's going to spread. There's nothing we can do about it. There's no point in closing down economies. We can't stop it. Let's just carry on as normal. And that would actually be probably, from what I would understand of the situation right now, probably the best course of action anyway. And just allow it to take hold and set root, and carry on as normal. So economies shouldn't be affected by it, and it could end up being a good thing. But anyway, Megatron virus will continue to shock markets possibly into next week, and crypto is vulnerable to whatever traditional markets do. Now, on top of all of this, so I can see we've just had a little tag of that right now, I think that Bitcoin is going to find a range, and the range basically beginning at 40,000 all the way down here. I know that might sound disheartening, but 40,000 base of the bottom of this range, and the top of the range being where we are right now. And so in this period, we will basically mess around like this, up, down, sideways, zigzagging all over the place, and eventually probably break out, because overall the direction is up, and everything does point to the up, and on-chain data suggests that there's more people buying. And so whatever we saw here was just a giant cascading effect of longs being liquidated over the weekends, and basically panic selling across the board as well. So I'm very bullish overall on the market, and I would expect the market to recover from this, either over a period of maybe even just weeks for a V-shaped recovery, or potentially just a sideways consolidation for Bitcoin, which would allow for altcoins to run. I know that sounds silly, but if we look at the Ethereum chart, for instance, it's Ethereum versus Bitcoin. It basically broke out from a very strong level of resistance and seems to want to continue to go higher. So we broke out. This is just the daily chart. We broke out before, came down, tested a 10 exponential. Now the moving averages over the last couple of days have started to cross above this area. So this makes the support stronger than it was. So it's flipped a resistance, should be a support, and if we do come down to it, we've got these areas here on these moving averages to bounce from before we even come down to test the support. So I'm very optimistic about the way that altcoins are going to behave. Now, a strong Ethereum should translate to an overall healthy altcoin market. So if Bitcoin decides to play that range, obviously if Bitcoin comes down, the market comes down, but if altcoins appear stronger generally, they will suffer obviously bigger dips and more sustainable and more aggressive bounces. That's my overall impression of the market as a result of the dump yesterday. It's a pretty impressive setup actually, and one that does also mimic what took place over in the March crash. So March 2020. We'll have a look at that on Ethereum actually, see what happened over here. Get rid of that for whatever reason. I don't know why that's in there. So 2020, January, February, March. So we got a March crash. This is where it all happened. We already started to see an uptrend in Ethereum at that stage. Ethereum is a very easy chart to trade at this point, very easy channel, and we finally broke out of that. So yeah, the March crash took place, a rise in Ethereum, come down to test support, continue to rise all the way up to the top again. Sort of this is an irrelevant channel at the moment. It's gone now. We've gone into a different vibe, and even this one here was a different vibe, and now we're going into another phase. So even with the historical reference to the previous crash that is what we've seen recently is like a mimic of the one in March. Altcoins driven by Ethereum and generally on the whole did more than recover. They outpaced Bitcoin, and everything actually seemed to rally significantly, basically from the March crash. That was the lows. That was the all-time lows. Those were the best opportunities to buy anything. You could have bought anything. Literally, you could have, your pet hamster could have crawled across your keyboard and bought anything at random, and it'd be extremely unlucky not to have made a significant amount of money if you'd bought something then and still held it today. It would be almost impossible. Almost impossible. So I'm not saying that this one's going to be as significant as in March, because that dip was horrendous. That was a big, massive dip. But it's driven in the same kind of way as what's happened recently. So I am looking for a similar kind of outcome, which is why I'm holding on to my bullish bias, essentially. Don't really see it as too much of an issue. Of course, we have to be on guard with what takes place in traditional markets over the next week, two, but generally I'm in favour of a small accumulation around Bitcoin around this level, and a range being fleshed out, and for altcoins to basically start to outperform Bitcoin all over again, at least in the short term, and XRP being one of them. Like I said, that was one hell of a wick there. That wick on its own was, from all the altcoins that we looked at last night, not all, but most, when you look at dozens of them on these live streams that we do, a 40% bounce was absolutely epic. So yeah, we'll see if this channel remains relevant. We'll see if these resistances and support are also relevant. So for the moment, we are basically in this range from between 79 cents to as high as 86 cents. So it's not a great massive range, but one way or another this is going to go or break down. And just like Carl from the Moon, when it breaks out, I'll make a video saying I called it exactly. And if it breaks down, I'll also say the same thing as well, making it look like I'm absolutely awesome. Anyway, that's the deal, and we'll see where we go as we enter the week, and what an interesting week it's going to be. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have a nice day. Take it easy.